Following is an audio presentation of The Vanishing, read to you by its author, James Griffin. If you enjoy this or any of my stories, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or even comment. This story is a work of fiction. All names, characters, places, events, and incidents in this story are either the product of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events or places is purely coincidental. Chapter 1. When Dreams Come True. It's mid-May when Cody and Mary, longtime high school sweethearts, become Mr. and Mrs. Cody Schmidt. Both are fresh out of college as they start their new lives together as husband and wife, a young couple struggling to make ends meet. Cody works as an assistant manager at a fast food restaurant while Mary is working part-time as a cashier at a large box store. Their lives are far from what they had envisioned, so to Cody it's a dream come true when he learns that he has secured a position with the Illinois State Police. Yes, he and Mary will have to spend 10 weeks apart while he attends the State Police Academy, but surely this sacrifice is not too much to ask. To Mary, on the other hand, this is not the only sacrifice that is being made. For even after Cody has spent time in training, there's not a day that goes by that she doesn't press her head to her husband's chest just to hear his heartbeat. He is so strong when he holds her in his arms, but still she knows how vulnerable he is, how vulnerable they all are. Mary never tells Cody of the fear that grips her life. She just can't. He gets too excited as he puts on his uniform. Serving in law enforcement has been a dream of his since he was a young boy. So how can she put a damper on it? It's the end of October when now Trooper Cody Schmidt takes his new position with the Illinois State Police, assigned to District 119 in the Camden County region. Cody, being a typical young rookie fresh out of the academy, is set to save the world. He studies every shift report and daily activity log as if they are Bibles. If something is going on in or around his jurisdiction, he is aware of it, and he assumes that other officers are just the same. That's why he's so surprised when, after just a few weeks in, he hears local deputies run a 1028, a vehicle registration check, on an abandoned vehicle. He immediately recognizes the name that is returned, Catherine Johns, 30 of Dulce, Illinois. Dulce is a mid-sized city just north of Camden County. He had just read her name on a missing persons report, so he is shocked when deputies radio for a tow truck rather than for a state police investigations unit. County units, this is State Police Unit 11924. Belay that tow request and secure the scene. We have a missing persons report on the owner of that vehicle. State police investigations will be dispatched to your location. That's a negative, Unit 11924, interrupts the voice of a state police dispatcher. Per command, the vehicle can be towed to the State Police Post 119 impound, and reports will be completed here. 10-9? Repeat last message, dispatch? Trooper Schmidt says over his radio, sounding confused. Dispatch reasserts. County units are to continue with vehicle impound. Also be advised that Unit 119-1 wants you to report to post for debriefing. 10-4. Okay, dispatch. As Cody pulls into the post's parking lot, he notices that there are only a few vehicles present. He sees 3 state police units and about 5 normal vehicles, which he assumes belong to non-patrol personnel. Cody is shocked at how small Southern Illinois police posts are compared to the northern posts, such as the one that he had been trained in. This is only the second time that Cody has been to his actual assignment post, as it's a good distance from his designated patrol area. And this will be the first time that he meets Unit 119-1, better known as Captain James Saunders, District 119 State Police Post Commander. How he wishes that their first meeting was not being prompted by his second-guessing command's clear deviation from normal investigative protocol. As Cody walks in, the dispatcher, who's perched behind a layer of bullet-resistant glass, manning her radio and control panel, smiles politely and motions towards a door that separates the outside lobby and the inner offices. Just as Cody reaches the door, he hears a buzz, obviously being unlocked by the dispatcher's control panel. Cody opens, then steps through the door, finding himself standing in a large hallway with a series of doors lining the inner wall. "Hey, Cody," he hears a voice call. "Come back here to my office," Captain Saunders says politely. Cody follows the voice, navigating the thin hall until he reaches the door, just to the right of the dispatch entranceway. "Good morning, sir," Cody says, standing just in Captain Saunders' office entrance. "Please, come in and take a seat." As Cody sits, Captain Saunders begins to expound on the reason for their meeting. "I'm sure you were confused by me overriding your order to leave the missing person's vehicle in place until forensics completes their investigation." "Well, to be honest, it did concern me, especially since based on police reports it seems that at least 4 people go missing each year off that same patch of highway." "I wish that was all there was," Captain Saunders says. "Police reports are archived after 10 years, so the list of missing people from that stretch of highway far exceeds the number from the reports that you've read. If you ever research the town of Trotter, you'll discover that it was a small coal mining town in southern Illinois that sprung up in 1893 around the Trotter Coal Company, which was trying to meet the heavy coal needs of the expanding railroad industry. There were over 260 men, not counting women and children, in that town. And one day, everyone was there, and it was life as usual. Then the next day, travelers found nothing but empty storefronts and abandoned buildings and houses. Everyone that was there was suddenly gone, and no one from that town was ever reported as being seen again. There were no bodies, no indications of battle. It was as if the residents of Trotter just suddenly vanished." "I'm sorry, but what does an old abandoned town from the late 1800s have to do with Miss John's car today?" Cody asks, becoming slightly frustrated. Captain Saunders gives an understanding nod and then explains. "Trotter was right there on what we now know as Route 217 in Camden County." Cody sits there for a few seconds, kind of slack-jawed, so Captain Saunders continues. "In the 1950s, when the state construction crews were building Highway 217, there were at least 6 workers that vanished, one just moments after being seen standing just feet away from a group of his co-workers. These people are just the tip of the iceberg, Cody. There are many more, filling in each year before and after those years. I wish that Route 217 was a simple crime scene, but something is going on out there that has been going on since long before we got here. I hate to look like a superstitious old fool, but Cody, there is something on that highway that we have no authority over." "So we just let people disappear while we hide our heads in the sand?" Cody asked, slightly angry. "I'm just telling you to be careful out there. Limit your travels up and down that roadway, especially in the more isolated areas." "I'm sorry, Captain. I mean no disrespect, but I'm a police officer, and I have a responsibility out there. Maybe you're right, and I can't help a person once they vanish, but I'll be patrolling up and down that roadway, doing my best to keep them from vanishing in the first place." "I understand, Cody," Captain Saunders says, lowering his head. "I just want you to be careful, okay?" "Thank you, sir, I will." As Cody exits the state police post, he sees a tow truck pulling a silver late model vehicle into the lot, taking it back to the impound yard. It must have been Catherine John's vehicle, the one that the county deputies had found abandoned. Cody's eyes become transfixed on the car, wishing that it could release its secrets to him. What had this piece of automotive steel seen? What had happened to the young driver that had been behind the wheel? Finally shaking it off, Cody starts his patrol vehicle and he exits the parking lot en route to his assigned patrol area. About 30 minutes later, Trooper Schmidt finds himself pulled over, still seated in the driver's side of his squad car, with his sunglasses off, looking down that lonely roadway that he now knows has claimed so many lives. Finally, he takes a deep breath, puts his sunglasses back in place. Turning his car radio on, Cody proceeds on patrol. But it's then that he recognizes the lyrics of the 80s country song that is playing. "There are things out there in the middle of them woods that make a strong man die from fright." Hearing that song playing, especially on this roadway, is just too much. Cody quickly turns off his car radio, content in listening to police traffic. Chapter 2. A New Obsession. As newlyweds, the connection between Mary and Cody is reignited, for though they were high school sweethearts, having had a connection since they were very young, this new connection is far beyond anything that either of them has ever experienced before. From the time that they wake up in the morning to the time that they go to bed at night, minus those few hours of distraction where they are separated by their jobs, they are together. The young couple spends their waking time snuggling on the couch watching television, reading, or perhaps just looking into one another's eyes. This is why it comes as such a shock when Mary realizes that Cody seems to be spending more time at his new job than he does with her. It's as if he doesn't have a normal shift anymore. If he's awake, he's in his squad car, driving up and down his patrol route. Even when he's home, it's as if his mind is somewhere else, barely even taking the time to acknowledge his new bride. Day in, day out, Cody is on patrol, stopping every car that he encounters, whether he has call to or not. As he pulls in behind an older model muscle car in dire need of a paint job, he turns on his emergency lights, running a 1028, a vehicle registration check on the vehicle. It comes back belonging to a local family. Inside the car are 3 scared teenagers, never having been stopped by the police before. What did I do, officer? The young driver asks. No, you're fine, son, Cody responds. I just wanted to let you know that there's some road construction ahead, so you'll want to take a right on the next gravel and bypass the highway. Oh, okay, thank you, sir, the young man responds, relieved but confused. Just as the young man pulls away, a middle-aged woman drives past in a small minivan. Cody quickly jumps back in his patrol vehicle. Leaving his emergency lights on, he gives chase, pulling the woman over. Within minutes, he is standing alongside the minivan, giving the same construction story to the woman that he gave to the teenager a few minutes before. As he talks to her, a high-end luxury vehicle drives past, driving a good bit over the speed limit. Again, Cody jumps into his patrol vehicle. His radar clocking the vehicle is driving 87 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. He immediately goes in pursuit, lights and sirens. Running the 1028 vehicle registration check on the luxury vehicle, Cody learns that it belongs to a local businessman by the name of Stan Watts, a well-to-do social elite from the area. It takes a good while before Cody finally catches him, passing several other vehicles before the driver reluctantly pulls over. What seems to be the problem, officer? Mr. Watts calls out to Cody as he approaches his vehicle. Well, sir, you were clocked at 87 miles per hour when you passed me back there. I need to see your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and your proof of insurance, Cody exclaims flatly. Come on now, officer. Surely you have better things to do than hassle respectable citizens. Why don't you just leave me alone and go find some vagrant to mess with? Sir, I'm going to ask you again. I need to see your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and your proof of insurance. As Cody sits there tolerating Mr. Watts' attitude, he sees multiple vehicles filled with people passing by, some perhaps to disappear into the nothingness that the highway has brought so many others. What a waste of time, Mr. Watts yells as he hands Cody his vehicle and driver's information. Cody ignores Mr. Watts' comments as he walks back to his squad car, taking a seat behind the wheel as he writes him a speeding citation. Mr. Watts, remaining inside of his vehicle, begins banging on his steering wheel impatiently. As Cody continues doing his job, he sees other cars and other people passing by. It's just crazy how all Cody wants to do is protect people, yet here he is, failing because of someone's flagrant disregard for the law. Once he completes writing the citation, Cody walks up and hands it along with the other documentation to Mr. Watts. Here you are, sir, Cody says politely. Please drive safely. Mr. Watts doesn't respond. He just throws his vehicle in drive and speeds off, disregarding even the slightest courtesy. Cody continues doing all that he can to steer people away from Highway 217. When he finally reaches the end of his shift, he doesn't stop. He continues pulling over vehicles, telling people the construction story that he had concocted, trying his best to get people off this road. Finally, Cody can hardly keep his eyes open, so he reluctantly heads home. Chapter 3. Is it an obsession, or is it paranoia? For the next several weeks, this way of life becomes a routine for Cody. Up at the crack of dawn, out on patrol, doing all that he can to get people off of Route 217. Then, when he reaches the point of exhaustion, he stumbles home, collapsing into bed for a few hours, just to start the entire process again. Is he making a difference, he wonders to himself? Only time will tell. It's then that Mary starts hearing the locals begin talking about this crazy cop out on the highway. Her ears perk up, knowing that the people are talking about the man that she loves. Wait a minute, she finally interjects as she overhears 2 middle-aged women talking as they go through her checkout lane. This cop is pulling people over, telling them made-up stories just to make them take a different road, she asks. Yep, one of the women responds. I wouldn't have believed it myself, but he actually pulled me over and told me that they were doing some road construction ahead, which I knew they weren't. Maybe he was just mistaken, Mary says, trying to sound disinterested. Well, my husband told me that cop is just off his rocker, another woman interrupted. He actually pulled my husband over and wrote him a speeding ticket. Isn't that his job? Mary asks, kind of confused. It wasn't the ticket, it was how rude he was about it. We own Watts Manufacturing, and my husband told me that cop was on a power trip, exercising authority over a respected member of the community, treating him as if he were some common criminal. If you ask me, that's what this cop's little game is all about. He's making respectable people go out of their way by sending them off the highway. Having them take secondary roads is just a means of demonstrating his authority. Your husband should call the state's attorney, another woman in the line interjects. Oh, trust me, he already has, and they assured him that they were monitoring the situation. Good, several of the women proclaimed boldly. Mary wants to go off. She wants to tell these old hens just who she is, but she can't. She knows that what these people claim is going on isn't right, but still she knows that something odd is happening. And at this point, she doesn't know what it is. That night, when Cody finally gets home, Mary softly confronts her husband. So what's going on, Cody? Mary asks as she walks up beside him, touching his shoulder. Cody's seated on their bed, taking his shoes off, preparing to lay down, looks up, kind of startled, almost as if he wasn't even aware that Mary was in the room with him. Oh, nothing. I'm sorry, Mary. I'm just thinking, Cody responds half-heartedly. What are you thinking about, Cody? Mary asks, hoping to perhaps penetrate the shell that seems to have been covering their lives since he started his new job. Cody looks up at his wife, realizing that he is shutting her out. He stands to his feet, taking her into his arms. I'm so sorry, Mary. I know how distant I've been lately. I just can't seem to turn my mind off. Well, can I at least know what you're thinking about? Mary asks, finally feeling a part of her husband's life again. It's just the people, the ones that are out there on the roadway that I patrol. It's as if I feel a personal responsibility to ensure their safety. But, honey, you're just a police officer. You aren't Superman, Mary says, compassionately yet oddly confused. I know that, but there's more to it than that. It's now that Cody recounts the stories of Illinois Highway 217. He tells Mary about the disappearance of Catherine Johns just a few weeks ago, then all of the others, and even the tale of the missing town, all of it. It's as if he has finally opened his mouth and everything that has been bottled up inside of him suddenly comes pouring out. Mary wants to refute her husband's fears. She wants to be the voice of reason in this conversation, but she can't. Because in the end, if there's any truth to Cody's fears, then his life is on the line. Well then, Mary says, I'm sorry, but you're done with the state police, especially with that cursed highway. Mary, please don't go there, Cody pleads. This isn't just a job to me, not now. Fine then, just go public with what you just told me, then make people responsible for their own safety. Cody then shows Mary a handout that he had made on their computer the night before. It's essentially a map providing detour information on how travelers can stay off of Illinois Route 217. This is great, Cody, but what are you going to say when you give it to them? Hi, I'm a state police officer that wants to warn you to flee from the state highway because of ghosts, aliens, or whatever other supernatural phenomena may be occurring? No one is going to believe you, Cody. You'll be labeled as a nut. Actually, you already are. Mary then recounts her day at the store to Cody, explaining to him what all those women were saying about him. If I can save one person, Mary, any label that they choose to give me will be worth it. At that moment, Cody's cell phone begins to ring. Hello? Cody answers. Yes, sir. I'll be there in just a few minutes. Cody then hangs up his phone. Breathing heavily, Cody tells Mary, that was Captain Saunders. It seems there was another disappearance tonight. It was a man that I just pulled over a few weeks ago. I think you just spoke to his wife earlier today, a local businessman by the name of Stan Watts. His wife reported him missing a few hours ago when he failed to come home from a business trip from a neighboring town. and now county deputies have found his car, abandoned, darn near where I pulled him over. No matter how many I get off that road, there are always more. Don't you understand that, Mary? If I had been out there tonight, maybe I could have saved him. Or maybe you would be gone too, Mary rebuts. And if that's my destiny, then so be it, Cody responds flatly. Don't you ever say that to me, Cody, Mary yells angrily. You don't have a personal destiny, not anymore. We're married, so when you speak of your destiny, you're talking about our destiny. Don't ever forget that. I'm sorry, Cody says apologetically. I didn't mean that. I just have to stop this, whatever it is. But what if you can't? Mary replies soothingly. You're only a man, Cody. A wonderful man, but a man just the same. Okay, I'm sorry, Mary. I have to go to the state police post and inspect Mr. Watt's car to ensure that there's no evidence to help lead to what happened to him. Well, forgive me for saying that I'm glad you'll be at the post rather than out there on that accursed road. Please come home so we can talk about this. Okay, I will, Cody promises. Chapter 4. The Disappearance. After leaving his home, Cody drives directly to Illinois State Police Post 119. But rather than dropping in for a cup of coffee and some random chit-chat, he goes straight to the impound yard and begins looking over the abandoned luxury vehicle of now missing businessman Stan Watts. Captain Saunders, seeing his trooper outside, steps from his office and calls out, "How's it going, son?" "Good evening, Captain," Cody calls back, not interested in pursuing a conversation. "You didn't have to come in tonight, Cody. You know this car is not going to reveal what happened, don't you?" Captain Saunders says as he walks up to Cody's side. "No, maybe not, but still I have to look. Something is happening out there, Captain, and we can't just act like we don't know about it." "I agree with you, Cody. I just really don't know what to do about it anymore. Trust me, you're not the first trooper to be on your knees searching under car seats, looking over vehicle bodies, trying to find some hidden clue, something that everyone else has missed. And honestly, neither was I. This, whatever it is, nearly drove me crazy when I took command here, and I'm afraid that it's doing the same thing to you. Random traffic stops at all hours of the day and night, people calling the post asking why there's a state trooper telling them tales of fictitious road construction, a formal complaint being filed against you through the state's attorney's office. I get it, Cody. I really do. I just feel personally responsible, Captain. I mean, to know that a danger exists, yet to do nothing about it, Cody explains. We do the best that we can, Cody. But in the end, if we run around telling ghost stories, we will lose whatever credibility we have. And with no credibility, then we cannot protect people. All you can do, Cody, is your job, keeping your eyes open, and one day a police officer will stumble onto the truth. And who knows, maybe it will be you. I hope so, Captain. I hope so. Well, I'm going to get back out there. I don't see anything here that's going to tell me anything. With a polite handshake, Cody gets back into his patrol vehicle, en route to where county officers discovered Mr. Watt's car. Mary, meanwhile, prepares a special breakfast for her husband, excited at the prospect of being with him again, even for something as casual as a meal. She knew that Cody had had a long night, but he promised her that he would be home as soon as his investigation was over. And the one thing that he had never done was lie. This is why she became so worried when the sun came out, and there was still no sign of him. Picking up her phone, she called her husband, leaving a frustrated message for him on his voicemail. "Cody, please, you've been out there all night. You need sleep, so where are you?" Then the morning shows start coming on television, and Mary is at her wit's end, when suddenly there's a knock on the door. As Mary answers it, she is shocked to see Captain Saunders standing there, but she's even more shocked by what he tells her. As Mary stands there at her front door sobbing, Captain Saunders, doing his best to comfort her, a special news interruption broadcasts over morning television. "This just in," reporters proclaim. An Illinois State Police cruiser reportedly assigned to Trooper Cody Schmidt has been found abandoned on Illinois Highway 217. Oddly enough, his police cruiser was discovered very near where local businessman Stan Watt's vehicle was found yesterday. Lionel Davis, attorney for the Watts family, is asking for a formal investigation into the disappearance. As Miss Julia Watts, the wife of Stan Watts, explained that just a few weeks ago her husband had come home extremely agitated based on the treatment that he had received from Trooper Schmidt. Attorney Davis further explained that though they are not making any formal accusations against Trooper Schmidt at this time, it does seem rather odd that her husband, Mr. Watts, would disappear right after she, Mrs. Watts, had inadvertently told Mary Schmidt, the wife of Trooper Cody Schmidt, that her husband was under investigation based on a complaint filed by Mr. Watts. Now Officer Schmidt stages his own disappearance right after my client, Stan Watts, vanishes under such mysterious circumstances. Maybe Trooper Schmidt was unhinged, as the complaint filed by the Watts family alleged. Maybe this has all been the story of a young man who experienced too much responsibility too quickly, taking on a new wife and a new job, then fed by local superstitions, his paranoia consumed him. On the other hand, maybe Trooper Schmidt was just what he seemed to be, an outstanding young police officer and family man with a bright future ahead of him, a man who finally found exactly what he was looking for. Maybe he had learned what had been taking people off of Illinois Route 217 for as far back as people could remember. Unfortunately, though, he never got to share the truth with the rest of us. As you're already aware, the story and characters, even Illinois Highway 217 and Illinois State Police Post 119, even Camden County, Illinois, are all a work of fiction. But there are many strange places in this world where people have gone missing. This story is dedicated to the memory of everyone who has ever turned up missing, whether it be under mysterious circumstances or not, and to the families that they have left behind.